Good afternoon. If it's okay, we're going to get started. And I'm Lee Oliveri, and I'd like to call the meeting to order. And Ms. Huerta, would you please do a roll call?
Sure. President Leah Olivari.
Present.
Vice President Alan Wilson.
Here.
Secretary Diana Summers.
Present.
Mark LaRue.
Present.
Jesus Jimenez.
Present.
Robert Tamez. Eric Evans will be late, but he will be here, but he's absent now. So we do have a quorum present to conduct the meeting.
Thank you very much. Next, I'd like to ask if there's anybody here that would like to make any public comment on any item on the agenda or anything else. I'll indicate that I don't see anybody that wants to make a public comment. Is there any, have there been any requests for comments received?
No, ma'am.
Thank you. With that, are there any, let's take up the meeting minutes, and I'll also ask if there's any excused absences. Apparently, Mr. Jimenez and Mr. Evans were absent at the last meeting. Would you like to request an excused absence, Mr. Jimenez? I think you were sick, weren't you?
Yes, I'd like to request that I was ill that day.
Do I have a motion that excuses his absence?
So moved.
Mr. Wilson, second. Mr. LaRue, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Let the minutes please note that Mr. Jimenez's absence is excused, and we'll take up Mr. Evans, I guess, at the next meeting now that we can do that. With that, if you've had a chance to review the minutes, are there any corrections, additions to the minutes as presented by Ms. Huerta? Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve the minutes as prepared?
So moved.
Mr. LaRue? I need a second.
Second.
Ms. Summers, second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Okay. With that, the financial reports. Ms. Casas?
Good afternoon, Alma Casas, Interim Director of Finance, here to present the financials for the 4 months ended January 31st for Type B. Oh, hello, let me get this.
Hello.
So beginning on the first slide, we have beginning fund balance at $15.29 million. We have revenues year-to-date of $3.3 million, expenditures year-to-date of $609,000, giving us an ending fund balance at January 31st of $18 million. The bottom half of the page will show you the breakdown between affordable housing, economic development, and streets. Moving on to the expenditures for affordable housing for the month, we had $10,872, economic development $583,096, and streets $15,869. Affordable housing, at the end of the year, we expect that our balance available for commitments would be $617,417, and that's with the commitments for infill housing and the Alma at Greenwood, which is $2.1 million. Moving on to economic development, we expect that our ending fund balance will be $13.6 million. And for those, we have $3.1 million in current and future incentives for this year that we expect that will be paid out. And those are the ones listed down there below. Moving on to streets, we anticipate that we will have $552,167 at the end of the year available for commitments after the transfer to streets, which is $4.3 million. Moving on to our sales tax revenue, we budgeted $8.8 million, and so far with our monthly variances, we are above revenues at $60,843. Any questions?
Are there any questions? I have a question about the housing and the infill housing. I guess we're getting close to half of the budget year. How are we doing on that? Ms. Holbrook?
I know that the previous program had been only over 22 and 23, I believe. And so that amount, I know that we had put a placeholder in there, but I don't know that we have a program that's come forward yet that has interest for the affordable housing. You know, the part of the challenge we've had is the affordable housing has to be less than 80% AMI qualifiers. And so there's been a challenge trying to find programs that it's eligible for. I know that we had worked with the city manager prior to the budget, and we had put a placeholder in there, but I don't know that we've come forward with that project yet, the proposed project.
So we really haven't had any specific interest?
No, we've had no specific interest in general, and we have not come forward yet with a new program. I know that there's been some work with some of the developers to try to understand what would be able to fit within different kind of footprints and what would work for their stuff, so.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions that anybody has? Mr. LaRue?
On the Alma Greenwood, is there any progress on that? I mean, where are they at on their?
If I remember correctly, I know that we came back, brought an item back to city council for another letter of support on it. I believe, gosh, I'm trying to remember, I think they were going back through another funding cycle, right?
Yeah, I think, what do we have, 5 different funding cycles?
I think so,
Because,
yeah.
they had about 5 different business proposals, and all of them didn't none of them came to fruition on their side. So most recently, they were trying to rush one through that had a deadline of about last week sometime, or 2 weeks ago, and it wasn't enough time for us to get it on the city council. So I think it's unknown at this point.
Yeah.
We probably need to reconsider this commitment, because I'm not sure if it's necessary, given their business. You know.
Exactly. I think we had left it there waiting for this next funding cycle. And since if they were not successful with that, then we probably do need to release the commitment. But that's where we are in it right now. Because I know we have a commitment here. We also have a commitment over on type A too.
It seems like we've got quite a bit of affordable housing money not going to work yet. I'm sure you're aware of that, Mr. City Manager, but I know that I read that the president is apparently also perhaps in his budget including a $10,000 new home owner buy-down program. I don't know any of the details.
Okay.
But it might be worth keeping a lookout on how the feds may be changing some of their rules that might allow us to be more flexible in our approaches.
Yeah, so unfortunately, some of the challenge we have is that it is, the affordable housing is defined, is very specific in the definition of what it can be used for through the type B. And it is based off of that below 80 and below, exactly, whatever the federal definition of affordable housing. And so we don't have a lot of latitude. We have latitude to create programs that'll fit within those definitions, but we don't have the latitude to be able to go outside of that definition is the challenge we have.
Well, it might even be something to explore with our congressional representative relative to legislation. So, anything else? Anybody else have any other questions? If not, then we'll move on to, we have some presentations. Gabe Lozano, the Type B board has funded some improvements out at the Gabe Lozano golf course. It's part of a wider package of improvements that are being done. And part of ours was to do some lighting to enable at-night play by visitors and citizens in an economic, hoping that it would spur some economic development interest. With that, if you'd like to introduce yourselves.
Thank you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen of the board. My name is Ed Miller. I'm the Chief Operating Servant for Foresight Golf and the project manager for the remodel of the Firefly Golf Course and Practice Range. I thank you for the opportunity to give you this update today. We're also thankful that we're not going to have to do very many more updates because we're getting very close to getting the Firefly and the range open. But I put together a few slides that will kind of bring us up to date as to where we're at. So, okay, this is the funding for the project. It started out with 3 sources of funding. Oh, excuse me, this is the budget. There we go. So this is the funding description. We started out with 3 sources of funding, and those were, as you mentioned, 2.3 million originally of certificate obligation bonds, $500,000 from this board. Thank you very much. Another 1.16 as the lighting project ended up being considerably more expensive than our first estimate numbers were after we got into the working with lighting and found out that Musco Sports Lighting is the brand name and the company that is the only company that has a 25-year guarantee on everything to do with lights, guaranteed light levels. It became apparent that we really needed to use them for the project. And then as considerable time went by from when the original budget was, project estimate was done, and then we entered into contracts, we did have some price increases. So we came to the city and were able to utilize $412,000 from the golf fund, number 4690. So this is the budget and what we spent to date. As you can see, that pretty much everything has been paid for. We have half of the netting project that still needs to be paid for. We have all the poles in and are just waiting for and we have a temporary hitting net up on the Lozana range right now so that we can continue allowing players to warm up and more probably as important, let our instructional programming continue. We have a lot of people that take lessons, and we have instructors that are on staff that if we didn't put up a temporary net so that people could hit shots, none of that could take place. So it has facilitated that. But as you can see, we're really close to being complete with the original budget and funds. We also have utilized our capital surcharge fund, which is a fund that we collect a range of $1.50 to $2.50 per round from our customers, and we set that money aside to do projects on the golf course and buy equipment so that we can keep everything, continue to improve things and keep operating efficiently. With the project, when a project is done, you have an architect and an estimate, and then you have a contract, and it includes this. Then you find, well, we didn't budget for new tee signs and accessories, water coolers. We needed more concrete on the tee line that wasn't part of the project. So fortunately, we have the capital surcharge fund, and we have spent to date over the last year $134,734 of capital surcharge monies that have been for this project. And we still have about $110,000 to go with accessories. We want to have a new sound system that will be all along the tee line, and we'll have a speaker over by the first tee, so we can, when you see, my last slide is probably the best form of information I'll get to share with you, but the nighttime golf tends to be very much an entertainment venue, and with that goes music, so we'll be able to play music through the speakers, and it'll just be a very fun and festive atmosphere when, you know, people are coming out to the golf course. We're really looking forward to it. So those are the details of funding yet to be determined. And I imagine we'll come across a few more. Here's another example. The post and cable fence along the storm drain channel. The city has post and cable along Old Brownsville Road, but it's never been an issue because, you know, during the daytime, it's obvious that there's a storm drain channels there that you do not want to, you know, drive your golf car into. But at night, we were concerned that we could have somebody end up in the storm drain channel, so we need to put up a post and cable fence to ensure that that doesn't happen. So all kinds of fun things occur. So this is what the practice range looks like right now. We just finished putting the white material, it's actually a limestone base, into pseudo bunkers that are around the target greens on the practice range. As you can see, looking at this picture and then all of our other pictures, there are a number of bare spots on the golf course. And that's not atypical of a grow-in, whereas you start out with some grass, and then you fertilize and water, and you wait for it to spread, and that is exactly what's happening now. The last planting occurred on the first week of October, which is very much the end of growing season and the beginning of winter. So we weren't able to grow very much grass over the winter months, but all of that is changing right now because all our grasses are warm season grasses, and they require more than 12 hours of daylight to produce food and kick into high gear, and soil temperatures that are higher than 60 degrees, which the soil temperature typically follows the nighttime low temperature. So we have both of those things as of this week, and we're already starting to see a lot of growth as a result. This is the 7th green complex. It has 2 bunkers, and the architecture of this golf course is we're really excited about it. It's state of the art, and for Corpus Christi, I think we have the highest point in Corpus Christi on one of the mounds on the back end of the practice range. So we moved a lot of earth to get the drama and the topography that the golf course now has. This is the approach to the 9th hole. It's the last hole on the Firefly, and it's a par 4 golf hole that plays back into the clubhouse. You can see the light poles on both sides of this picture, and you can see the net poles that have been installed for some time. And we anticipate that we're going to have the net company come out the first week of May and take down the temporary net, put up the permanent nets along both sides of the practice range, which will, protect the players that are on the golf course from getting hit by people practicing hitting balls on the range, and take down the temporary net at the same time. And at that point in time, the practice range will again be open, which will be a wonderful thing because we really have been missing the full use of it. So this picture, if you're an agronomist, which you'll have to tolerate me because I am an agronomist, this is an exciting picture. I mean, when you're in our business, you've all heard the saying, it's about as exciting as watching grass grow. Well, for us, it really is exciting, particularly when it grows like this. That picture was taken last week, and that was a 2-foot by 3-foot patch of bare ground that the runners from this very high quality hybrid Bermuda grass are covering up that patch of bare ground. And I wanted to put that in there because that's what we're going to experience in spades the next couple of months. Okay, how do I start this? Right there. This was taken last Friday, right at the beginning of spring break. Our director of marketing drove down and flew his drone over the golf course and took these shots. No, you won't even need a glow ball. And what we found is the white ball shows up best under the lights than yellow balls. So that the project is 45 acres. We have 7 acres that need to be touch-up planted. And most of those are right where you drive by on Old Brownsville Road. When you plant a golf course, you typically start at the very back, like we did on the 9th hole, and then you work your way out, because once you put the sprigs down, you turn the water on, and you really don't go back in there for another 2 to 3 weeks, because it gets really wet and muddy. So you back your way out. And the last hole that was planted was hole number 1, and something happened. We didn't get a great take on that hole. So the contractor is coming back and is going to plant the remaining 7 acres, no additional charge to us. And we anticipate that is going to happen next week. And then if we have 2 months of good growing weather, we'd love to open Memorial Day weekend. And if we don't make Memorial Day weekend, it more likely will be the first week of June. But we really don't, this project is a great project, and we want it to be first class and be completely done when we do open up. We don't want to open up early just for the sake of opening. So it won't be long. I mean, Memorial Day or June will be here before we know it. Does anyone have any questions?
By the way, we have an inspector who goes out weekly on the board. So beware.
He's big on the drainage ditch.
Yeah.
Yeah. Me too.
I have a couple of questions, if nobody else does, that might occur to the public. What is the source of water that you use? Is it, are we using effluent out there? We're using fresh water? We don't
Right,
know.
they use effluent water from the Greenwood plant at this location.
Okay, so it is affluent water, just so that people know. And
Right,
then,
100%, yeah.
yeah, and, because that's a hot topic these days. And so, and then also, there are some residences in that area. Do you anticipate that lively music at night might be an issue for them? Have you tested the system yet?
No, we haven't.
Okay.
We don't have it.
Okay.
It is on order. But where the clubhouse is located, there really aren't any.
But it's out on the tees, right, too? Or it's just on the first tee?
Right, first tee and practice tee.
I don't know, sound,
it-
sound is a weird thing. It travels in the most odd way, so
Well, if we get noise complaints, I guess we'll have to.
you'll have to
we'll
turn it down or pipe it into everybody's earbuds. Okay. Any other questions? That's a wonderful project, great project. I think it'll be a real asset to our community. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We're really excited.
And I know there's some people here that'll look forward to helping you cut the ribbon.
Yes.
Some golfers. With that, I think our next item is a presentation by the Corpus Christi Regional Economic Development Corporation. And we have Randy Aldinger here to go through that with us. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Madam President, board members, Randy Almaguer with your CCREDC Compliance Officer. I'd like to extend a happy birthday again to Board Member Thomas and City Secretary Rebecca. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
So I got a quarterly report. I think I came last year. I'll be bringing a recap of 23 programs for the small business projects, and then on the larger ones, where they're at to date. So this project got approved late last year. It's a $230,000 grant approval for weather seal tight the Ritz Theater. It's a matching grant with the Texas Historic Commission. I talked to the executive director with CC Pat, Cheryl, and she said they should have that scope of work done by the end of this month. Perform compliance in June and hopefully bring another update at the end of June, July timeframe. Botanical Gardens, I actually talked to Dr. Womack last week, and he's looking to bring an extension request to the Type B board. He was able to secure Jaybird Construction. He thinks he can get it done at the end of this month. He actually thought it was May 31st, and we got that cleared. I said, I think we'd be better off requesting an extension just in case, just being how long this program's been going on since 2020 and everything in between with Texas Park and Wildlife. And now it's with TxDOT and TPW. So that's where we're at. You should see something next month coming with an extension request on that one. Next sports, we had a few of the board members there in December for the groundbreaking. Picked up some dirt, threw it over your shoulder. This one's in 2 phases. Again, the Type B board approved the amendment request back in June of 23. So that got pushed out to December 31, 24 and phase 2 of 26. Here's A&M University Industrial and Civil Engineering Program. This one expired at the end of last year. As you can see, it was a $2 million grant. 1.6 was expended. And you see from 21 to 23, they had 541 students in pre-engineering, 295 in civil, and then another 72 in industrial. And if you've been seeing around town, there's a need for engineers. It's a shortage. And the Lone Star UAS Center, I was actually out there last week and got to see over there in Flower Bluff what that looked like and my perception of drones compared to what I saw. You're talking 300 pounds drones there, about 10, 15 feet long. So I was a little mind blown on that. They're moving along. I talked to Jamie actually earlier this month. They're going to need a extension request as well, and we're looking April, May timeframe to see where she would like to push that date out. In the agreement, it does say they have to have a C of O, and as you can see, I put it in parentheses, June 30th. They plan to get that C of O, but it looks like it's going to be at the end of the year, so they may look to extend this out to next year around the same time, June 30th of 25, just in case. But they've had some issues internally, just getting approvals within their organization with A&M. So
remind me, is the COO on Flower Bluff or is the COO downtown?
Downtown.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're mixing the two
Yeah.
a little bit. Yeah. It's on the building downtown.
or the building downtown. And then here we are in our small business programs here. We have eight of them now. This one is a fiscal year. This is SCORE. This one helps training for small businesses. As you can see, for FY23, they handled 473 cases with 73 workshops, along with 1,806 unique attendees. It was an $83,000 500 grant, and they fully expended that grant. Again, it's a fiscal year project. This one paid $90,000. They had $9,600 go back to fund balance, with loans totaling over $300,000. And here's A&M's internship program. As you remember, last year they came in during budget, requested a budget increase, and they fully expended that. They had 66 interns with 56 companies participating. intern to full-time employee conversion, they had 4. So that was a bullet that Thai B Board had requested to include in there and for them to be tracking a little bit more closely, so we included that in there.
Yes, Ms. Summers?
Can we get, of the 56 companies, can we get kind of an overview of what industries those 56 companies are in?
Oh, yes, I can provide that to you. I can send you in an email. They sent a report on who they are and what industries they're in.
And I think that also might be helpful of, you know, if we can get any information around the industries that really are pulling the full-time positions that are actually creating the jobs here.
Yes, ma'am, I can do that.
Thank you.
I guess I would say that I'm kind of curious what Del Mar sees as the inhibitors for those becoming full-time. Is it just that the students are going on to graduate school or going on into more study or leaving town? Or, I mean, what seems to be the barriers to getting more of those into full-time employment within our local workforce?
With it, okay.
And I guess in addition to that, you know, the 56 companies, are we getting repeat companies year over year? And are they creating any full-time positions if they're repeats?
I have those data points for you.
Thank you.
All right. Oops. Apex Accelerator, formerly known as PTAC, they've now fully switched over with the name change. This one helps small businesses to bid, performing on procurement contracts with all levels of government. It was a $105,500 grant. They helped 336 businesses with contracts totaling $338.5 million. The grant paid $101,452 with $3,500 going back to fund balance. Here's a year over year from 22 to 23 on, with 23 being last year. A few that stand out is the number of contracts awarded, 2,600 versus 1,229, and the value of the contracts. As you can see, training attendees as well, 868 in 22 to 1,430. I'll give you all a second look at that if you had any questions on it. Here's our Del Mar College CRC Contract Resource Center. This is one that's one-on-one advising with small businesses to help them secure large and multi-year projects in the area. It's a $150,000 grant. They had 108 clients, held 63 Construct Connect client sessions. They had 28 contracts totaling $8.9 million. It was a $150,000 grant. The next slide goes into more data points in there from 2022 versus 23. As you can see, ones that stand out as attendees, 89 to 286. The value of the contracts from 3.5 to 8.9. And contracts, they went down, but the value of the contracts went up. So. I don't have that information of why it went up so much. I'm sure I can get that for you. I can reach out. I do have Del Mar here as well. I don't know if they have that information. But we can definitely, I can get it in an email to you and send it out. Everything's gone up, right? Post-COVID. Here's Del Mar College. This one's up to date where we're at. It's a $130,000 grant that Type B approved last year. It's paid $2,900. In December, I talked to Dan. They were looking to hire that program manager and did everything, all the research, interviewed, and they brought him along January 1. So they have the program manager on board. And I'd like to bring a little bit more information at the next quarterly on this program and see how it's going, helping small businesses. I'm sure everyone saw an email from Mike last month on, having to do with cyber and don't open that email. So just looking at who's fishing, this and that. So that's what does, help small businesses with that one-on-one advising, things of that nature. Here's Del Mar internship program. I know you were mentioning the intern to full-time. They had 12 versus A&M having 4, I believe. So they had some full-time conversions. Again, I can get that other information on who's moving on, if they're going for a 4-year degree or doing something else. But I'll provide that information. And then you have Del Mar College SBDC. It's a $150,000 grant. Here's their 2023 numbers. They had total clients counseled was 679. Business startup milestones was 51, expansion 51, over 2,000 training attendees, 171 total training events. That concludes my presentation. Any other questions from the board?
I just want to note one thing. You were going back through the quarterlies and also recognizing the difference in fiscal years between different entities. But that report makes it look like everything's expired. And we have new projects that are coming in that will be reported in the next quarterly report, I
Yes.
believe, for the next.
Yes, ma'am, I'll
Mark.
report on
I
the
just wanted to
FY20
make a
okay.
note that we're not just reporting, that we're not doing anything with new money.
Yes, ma'am.
It's just not contained in that report because of the differences in fiscal year reporting, I
Yes,
believe.
and
Is that
yes,
correct?
we have eight small business programs active right now for FY24.
Many of the same type of things, but with a new funding allocation for this year.
Yes, ma'am.
Anything else? Thanks.
Thank you.
Is there anything else? Would it be appropriate to go back and ask Mr. Evans about his absences? while
Yes,
he's
ma'am.
here?
That's fine.
Okay. Mr. Evans, we took up the issue of excused absences last time, and you weren't in yet. And so you are certainly able to ask for an excused absence for the last time if you had a business out of town or an illness or something. I just wanted to see if you would like to request one, so the record could reflect that.
Yeah, I think I was out for a family illness on that one.
That would work. Do I have a motion? Mr. Wilson, second, Mr. LaRue. So would he be so kind to also reflect this? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Sorry. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
And sorry I was late. I'm a bad person. Sorry.
I'm not aware of anything that he had on his report for today, so.
Can you turn your mic on, please?
Sorry. Would you be kind enough to introduce to everybody our new staff attorney who will be
Sure.
taking over for us?
Yes, so we have Jacqueline, or she goes by Jackie. She is our new our new legal counsel. As you know, Amy Alcorn-Reed did accept this position with the city of Kyle, and so she has moved on to bigger and better things, but we're happy to have Jackie in her place, and she has very big shoes to fill, but I have 100% confidence that she will do that, so.
Yes, thank you all, and I very much look forward to working with each of you.
Thank you. If there is no other business, then this meeting is adjourned, and we will take up the type A meeting right away. Okay. With that, I'd like to call the meeting of the Type A Business and Job Development Corporation to order. Ms. Huerta, will you please call the roll? And I note that Mr. Temez just stepped out for a second.
Okay, so he'll be back. Okay, President Leah Oliveri.
Present?
Vice President Alan Wilson. Here. Secretary Diana Summers.
Here.
Mark LaRue.
Present.
Jesus Jimenez.
Present.
Robert Dames. Eric Evans.
Here.
Okay, we do have a quorum to conduct the meeting.
Thank you very much. I'd like to also ask if there's anybody here for public comment, just general public comment on our activities or anything. I don't see anybody who's indicated that. And so do we have anybody that has?
No written either.
Okay, thank you very much. If there are none, then I'd entertain a motion to approve the minutes, but let me note one thing before we get to that. We have 2 board members who had indicated in the Type B meeting that they were absent at the last meeting for illness or a family illness. And so I would first entertain a motion that Mr. Evans and Mr. Jimenez be granted excused absences in these minutes.
So moved.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. With that, I'd entertain a motion to approve the minutes if there are no changes or as presented in your packet. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Second, there's a motion and a second. So if all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. I don't hear the possibility of any no's, so the motion carries. With that, Ms. Casas, if you'd like to give us a quick Type A financial report.
Good afternoon, Alma Casas, Interim Director of Finance. Here to present the 4-month ended January 31st financials for Type A. We've got the Seawall Fund. We have a beginning fund balance of $20.9 million. Revenues year-to-date, $3.3 million. Expenditures year-to-date, $14.1 million, giving us an ending fund balance at January 31st of $10.1 million. And we do have a committed fund balance in Seawall CIP Fund of $47.9 million. Those are the expenditures, the budget and the expenditures for the Seawall CIP Fund. And then moving on to Arena Fund, we've got our beginning fund balance of $13.8 million. Revenues year-to-date, $3.3 million. Expenditures year-to-date, $3.6 million, giving us an ending fund balance at January 31st of $13.5 million. Moving on to Economic Development Fund, we start off with a beginning fund balance of $780,000. Revenues year-to-date of $13,369. Expenditures, $455,318, giving us an ending fund balance of $338,137. From that, we take our outstanding commitments. We have outstanding commitments of $214,952, giving us an available fund balance of $123,185. Of that, $13,333 is available for affordable housing, and $109,852 is for economic development. There is our affordable housing. Those are the commitments, $173,893. Moving on to major business incentives, we have $41,059 committed. And then giving us our sales tax revenue. Our sales tax revenue, we are up $121,685 over budget. Any questions?
And that sales tax revenue does not come in for the economic development. It only comes in for the arena and for the seawall, which are
correct.
still active collecting funds. Any questions? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next item on our agenda is relative to a motion approving $3.5 million in heating and cooling improvements for repairs at the city-owned facility, the Art Museum of South Texas, and the appropriation out of the seawall fund balance.
Hey. Good afternoon, Board Chairwoman. I'm Heather Holbert, Assistant City Manager. So the item that we have here is for repairs at the Art Museum. So Art Museum is down here along the seawall. Looking at the bird's view, the complex is made up of two buildings, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a second. And so what this is that currently the two buildings are on two different systems for HVAC. So the Johnson Building is tied to the American Bank Center. So we have a chiller system where we have the Johnson Building at the Art Center, the Art Museum. We have the Harbor Playhouse, and then we have the Museum of Science and History Museum. So all three of those are fed through a chilled water system that is based within the American Bank Center. So the Johnson Building is still on that, and then I can never say this. There you go. That building there is based off of is on a separate system. It's actually an independent system which is based within the Art Museum. So we had planned on decoupling the system with the American Bank Center in probably between 2028 and 2030. We have that in our long-range CIP plan. But what has happened is that the other system is failing and is at end of life. Currently, the Art Museum does have a temporary chiller that is helping provide cool air into the La Goretta building. But it is not, it's, as we know, as the weather gets hotter, this is going to have more challenges. And so what we're asking is that we would like to go ahead and move forward with the decoupling and then install a new system that would do the whole building so that you wouldn't be dealing with two separate systems. And so what the project would entail would be decoupling that from the American Bank Center. It would include chillers, cooling towers, and air handlers. It would do enhancements to the mechanical rooms to handle all this new equipment. You'd have new boilers, piping, and associated equipment along with HVAC controls. And that HVAC controls is a really important thing because as it is right now, the Art Museum is having a challenge trying to balance the systems along with balance the HVAC that is coming from the American Bank Center. And so there is a lot of challenges with humidity and temperature control, which is something that is very important in a museum environment. We do have the director of the museum, Sarah Morgan, here, and I'll allow her to speak in just a second. But this is a really important thing to be able to have that consistency. And this would also go along with our energy code. And so because of the time sensitivity of this, we would want to just begin design as soon as possible. That's also, we've already got some preliminary design, go out for bid and award, and then have construction into 25 and 26. Unfortunately, what we have found in supply chain as it is, these chillers, especially this type of specialized chiller, these large chillers, have a long lead time on them. So the more quickly we can move forward with this project, the more quickly we can get these in, but there's still a year or so lead time on these. Well, there you go. Are there any questions right now? And then if not, then I can also have Sarah come up and speak.
Mr. Wilson has a question.
So after the project, the Art Museum will be self-contained
Yes.
chiller,
Yes.
and the Museum of Science and History and Harbor Playhouse will still be connected to American.
They will still be coupled with the American Bank Center. We had all three facilities scheduled in the 2028 timeframe to decouple all three of them. We feel like it is the best use of money to go ahead and decouple, just do this all. If we have one system failing, we might as well go ahead and move forward with that decoupling and create a totally integrated system that is a standalone system.
Thank you.
Sure.
Mr. Evans?
And obviously, we're dealing with art, right? Which is
Yes.
a very critical asset to this community, and HVAC and is a very important piece of that, so certainly support it. But it seems like the timeline's a little extended. Maybe I can ask the director when she comes up. But I mean, is there any way to accelerate this?
So actually what we can do is, Jeff, did you want to speak to that real fast?
Don't,
So I think
Maybe a
that-
loaded question, but I mean,
don't
obviously.
don't
they've
make
got-
the poor director answer an
Yeah,
engineering
I think
question.
the challenge is the lead time, and Elsie, maybe you'll speak to this too. The challenge is the lead time on the chillers. You know, we are experiencing, I think, with, right now at the American
18 to
Bank, the
24
arena
months.
side, is that it is an 18 to 24.
24 months.
24-month lead time. So while we can get the design done immediately and award that contract, that equipment would not be on the ground to be installed until 2025, 2026. Is that a?
You took the words right out of my mouth. No, we're having this on a lot of projects that have manufactured equipment where there's big backlogs for that equipment. And so what we're doing to adapt to that, the first step we're doing is do enough design to come up with a list of long lead items and then get that order in. And then finish out the design, put it out for bid normally, but with owner-furnished equipment for the long lead items. And so that's why the construction schedule looks a little unusual there. So in the design part, I would say, you know, pre-design, pre-ordering equipment, and then finish out bid documents.
And so to clarify, am I correct in saying that when you see that November, January of 24, 25, that is, so we would do the design for the basic spec for the equipment, and then we would then have a longer lead time on the design for the actual duct work and how the system operates and things like that, correct?
I would say that we're gonna get that equipment ordered in that midway through that design window.
Okay.
So just as soon as we can come up with a list of, do enough design to get identify and spec all the long lead equipment, and then finish out the balance of the bid documents. And that typical November to January is it's like 3 months from when we advertise for bid before we can go to council with a bid award. So that'll be the normal process, but that equipment will already be procured, and the idea is to have that equipment delivered at the same time you're starting up the construction.
So to answer your question, we've tried to optimize that timeline as much as we can, but there still is that long lead time on getting those the chiller equipment and things in there to get that done. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
So I don't think anybody doubts I certainly don't doubt the importance of getting this problem solved. But I just, let me ask a question. So we don't really know what the budget demand will be at this point. We won't know that until we fully spec out the extent of the design, correct?
That's probably an accurate statement, yes.
Yeah.
A good estimate, I think.
So what we're doing really is approving, in essence, a placeholder, awaiting more information based on your engineering work to determine what we think the best estimate will be for the cost.
I would agree with that.
Okay.
I would, Chairman, Elsie Borks, Assistant Director of Economic Development. I would add to that it also allows engineering or staff to have a budget that allows us to start ordering equipment or purchasing equipment if we need to. So it's not just for design work, but
No,
also
we
to allow
understand
us to
that.
do
All
that.
I'm trying to get at, Elsie, of course, is that
There might be
until you
additional-
get that, you don't, you know, you're kind of floundering into what's it really gonna cost. And so I didn't want anybody in the future to say, wait a minute, you told us it was gonna cost this much, when in fact it could be 10% more or even less.
Okay.
And that 3.5 million also does allow for some latitude to be able to have, if there are intermediate maintenance that has to happen to keep that existing system up and
Well,
running.
that's good information to know. 'Cause
And it
that hadn't
also
been-
has some allowance in there if we have to rent any type of additional equipment. Right now, there is a chiller in there to handle one of the buildings, but if for whatever reason, if something happens to the American Bank Center and that other side fails, then we may have to rent equipment. So there is some allowances in there for some of that intermediary.
So the order really is to take a look very quickly and see if you can do some temporary repairs on the existing in order to eliminate the $18,000 a month or whatever it is temporary, and then move at the same time, moving into design of the ultimate solution.
And then
Is
have
that
the
correct?
allowance if we have to maintain, if we have to continue with the temporary equipment.
So the 3.5 is with a little bit of extra in there for the contingency potentials.
That is, exactly. Yeah,
Okay.
some kind of intermediary steps.
When we reviewed the American Bank Center, HVAC, it was, I believe, 3.5 million as well, correct?
Are you talking about the arena?
Yes,
The arena. So the American Bank Center works on two, also, it's two different systems. One is on the arena. It's a little bit more than that for the arena because we're purchasing 2 units just for the arena. Now, this one in particular, connected to the Johnson Building, is actually connected to the convention center side. So that's a separate funding source that has not been approved right now for improvements. So it's still working on the existing units.
But so the arena HVAC that we approved, the funds for that was for 2 units, and this is for 1?
This,
Go ahead.
the one for the art museum is for 2 units, because it's right now essentially in 2 different buildings.
Okay.
So one would be essentially improving the existing chiller tower, HVAC, all those components. But for the Johnson Building, it's essentially giving them a whole new system that does not exist right now because it's working off of the chilled water system.
Wait a minute. If the Legardo is broken, you're going to replace it.
You're going to replace it and improve.
And then you're also going to
then
buy a new chiller
Yes.
to serve the main.
Exactly.
The Johnson
Johnson
Building.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Because it's dependent on that chilled water coming
So
from the
it's
American
2
Bank.
chillers.
Overall.
Oh,
Yes.
Overall.
Yes.
And the arena was 3.5 million,
Just
correct?
about, yeah.
Okay, and so do we have any tracking on the budget there? I mean, that we could base this one off of? Just
So
to have-
the numbers that we got is from the consultant that is helping us with our gap analysis and our facility conditions report. So that's based on existing numbers that are out there right now. Again, subject to change,
That's
based on
best
once we
guess.
got them
Yeah.
bids.
That was about a year ago, so
Yeah.
I was hoping that maybe that
It's different units
add
though,
lines. Yeah.
because the arena is, and Jeff, you can elaborate more.
Yeah, I mean,
The tonnage.
these are like comparing your family SUV to a school bus or
Okay.
semi-trailer. They're
They're
very
significantly different. Okay.
Yes.
And in this case, we also have to decouple it from its existing supply.
Exactly.
Once you get the new unit in place, then you have to, we're paying to turn it off back at the main chiller. Is that correct?
In essence.
In
yeah.
essence.
Yeah, in essence, yeah.
Whatever.
It would actually, once the whole, let's say, the whole process, the whole timeline is done, essentially, it would give more capacity to the American Bank Center then, which is right now is sustaining essentially like 4 to 5 different facilities, because if you count the Salina Auditorium is 1, the Convention Center is 2, then you have Art Museum, Science Museum, and the Harbor Playhouse. So it's 5 facilities, really, that is from this chiller system. So it would give more capacity than once the Art Museum is removed, decoupled, if you will.
Will that extend the useful life of these systems by kind of taking off some of the load capacity?
It's certainly
I
not going
mean-
to hurt.
I mean, we seem, the last one was an emergency situation. They take some time, so just going forward, are we looking at the useful life of these so that we don't get into that emergency?
Are you
The
referring
last-
to
Now, the last emergency we had was recently in the fall, which was a repair of some leakage that was going on
In the boiler system.
in the boiler system itself.
We're talking arena, or we're talking convention center?
Overall, are we looking at the useful life
Well,
of these?
the reality is, they're at the end of the useful life. Even the convention center in this case, we had multiple situations where it went down over the summer.
Okay.
Multiple, and we had to rent equipment. Now, it's a different funding source, it wouldn't come here, but it is affecting. So, and anything that helps it with that capacity would help to reduce. At least it will give the independence to the art museum, like Heather mentioned earlier, to be able to have some redundancies in place and not be affected by that.
And I guess that's kind of where I was trying to get to, so that we're not having to go rent systems and have those expenses where they're not into the asset, they're just expenses.
The convention center, HVAC and chillers all need to be replaced.
Thank you.
So let me note one other thing, though, because some of us are war wounded, if you will. Nothing against the need for this, but if we did not have the availability in seawall, where would these funds come from before we had seawall money?
They would have to come from the general fund, yes.
Okay. So I just want to note for board members that we've been questioned before about how we're using the seawall fund, and this is not necessarily, some would argue, let me put it that way, that this is a step for an expansion of how that funding should be used.
Yeah, there have been those opinions. Legally, you're able to use seawall funds because the art museum is attached to the seawall, and we have a legal opinion that, yes, this is. Some can argue it's not within the spirit of the intent.
Of the seawall,
But there is precedent that we have used this the same way.
Any comment on that, Mr. City Manager?
No, just, that's it, exactly. So under the original Type A sales tax authorization, it wasn't clearly laid out about, was this just for the flood control structure or for things attached to it? So over the years, our bond counsel has agreed that we can do things that are attached to the seawall as long as it's by a common road, I believe is a.
Without crossing any lanes of traffic.
Without crossing any lanes of traffic is the thing. So we have numerous precedent that demonstrate this is an acceptable use. Later in this meeting, we're going to present the council's foundational agreement for the new renewal of the sales tax venue. And in this case, the council's recommendation is just for the seawall structure, just the flood control device. So that would be clear, that would be more clear in this upcoming venue tax. However, this one wasn't as specific, so it's an eligible use.
Real quick, I'll add a quick comment. I'm not a mechanical engineer, neither do I desire to be one. So I'm a civil structural guy, but we deal with facilities and projects of this nature. And I like the concept that you're presenting because to me, it doesn't seem efficient to be running the building that's a good distance away from where the chiller's at. So there's losses and there's stuff through there. I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this, but you should be able to see some energy efficiency and reduction in energy costs, by doing this.
Yes.
And also, Diane mentioned earlier too about the concern of the convention center chiller. Now at least it's going to be, although it is reaching the end of its life, it might not have to run at its full
It'll be
potential.
removing one less.
Yeah, we'll be
use of it,
alleviating
yes.
some. So
Yes.
I like the concept, and it's good. I think it's be good and efficient for the city.
I can give you a little bit of explanation that helps explain why they did it this way. Back at the time that they did it, there were time of use rates on electricity. And a lot of you probably remember the old ground storage tank we had over there that said C District on it. They would store chilled water in that tank. So they would produce chilled water in the off-peak hours at lower cost for electricity, and then they would use that during the day during peak demands, and it made sense, but they don't do that time and use rate anymore. So we took the tank out, and really it's a little bit obsolete, the situation that we're using.
Thank you.
And I would like to give opportunity, I believe Sarah had wanted to address the board too, so.
Thank you for your consideration on this. I just kind of wanted to briefly explain, and I think you guys actually get it before I even have to say anything, but we are a different kind of institution, and because we are caring for art and we are stewards of a permanent collection, it's really important. Our climate is so important for us. And we've had lots of issues, like last summer, Elsie was talking about when the American Bank Center had a problem. We actually had to deinstall the majority of the artwork in the Johnson Building. Excuse me. We had a temporary collection, a temporary exhibition on loan to us from another institution. They were actually set to come down to see that exhibition, and we had to call them and say, don't come. That doesn't look good for us. And we've recently been declined loans from other institutions. We have to give climate readings before they'll lend to us. And so what they're seeing are huge variations in those readings. And so we've been declined And if this continues, it's going to affect the programming that we're able to offer our community and our visitors, and we don't want to see that happen. And then we're stewards of a permanent collection of over 2,000 pieces, and so it's really important for us that we're doing as much consideration as it requires. So for those reasons, this is really critical. And, you know, when we went down with that temporary, with the chiller the last month or so, have brought in a temporary chiller, which in the last 3 days is now out. So we're really happy to have this little cool front that blew in. And as far as being part of the seawall, I would just say that we're one of the few museums that's actually a port marker. So I think that's about as seawall as you can get.
In the mayor's world and the staff's world, but there are varying ideas about what the seawall is. But I just want to note, I'm kind of questioning something, and don't need Jeff back up here, but for somebody that has, you know, I don't know that any air conditioning system in Corpus Christi will ever deal with humidity. I assume y'all are pursuing other ways to maintain constant humidity in that facility, because it's not going to come off of it.
No, I mean, it's certainly a dance. We have large dehumidifiers.
Right.
Professional dehumidifiers. We're also looking into some, you know, some of those, now it's completely lost me, the air drops.
Air curtain.
Air curtains,
Yeah,
thank
'cause
you.
it's just, it's
No, there's no
impossible.
way. Yeah, there's no way.
With the high ceilings,
Right.
and I mean, I run a
Yeah.
dehumidifier in my house, so. Okay, so the item before us is a motion to approve $3.5 million be allocated or held, I guess, as a budget item, I mean, in the budget for the replacement of and realignment of the chilling system in the Art Museum of South Texas, and appropriation from the Seawall Fund balance. Oh, you have a question?
No, I was just gonna,
Oh, Mr. LaRue is making that motion?
yes, no, well, I was just gonna, again, note that I am a member of the
Oh, I'm
Art Museum.
sorry.
Don't personally, yes.
I apologize. He has asked that he perhaps step back from this vote, just because
He wants to abstain.
he is a board member, so he's, you know, yeah, I'm not sure he has to, but just for,
I'll make the motion.
is that Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Tamez? I have a motion and a second to approve the funding of this out of the Seawall Fund balance. All those in favor, say aye. Aye.
Okay, and Mr.
All those
LaRue abstains.
opposed?
I'm sorry,
No,
go ahead.
and Mr. LaRue abstains. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So you're on your road for a new system. Next, we have a Corpus Christi Marina, a long-awaited Corpus Christi Marina update. Oh, my gosh. He got all fancy for us today, didn't he? 3 years at the city, and now you're in. Welcome. Would you introduce yourself, please?
Yes. Good afternoon. Jonathan Atwood, Corpus Christi Marina Manager. Thank you all for having me. I'm going to let him pull the presentation up here real quick.
We have asked for this update, by the way, as a board, just because we have been funding some improvements down in the marina, also using seawall money. And the seawall is a line of defense.
Yes, thank you very much for that. So I want to provide this update to you. Same or similar presentation what I provided to council in December. So this is a list of the projects that this board has funded and projects we have going on in the marina right now. So dock ABC DNO replacement dredging is a project we started basically 3 years ago when I came on board. And if you go down to the marina right now, you'll see that dock A has been completely demolished, and they have an excavator and barge in the marina that they're starting the dredging on. I can say that the L dock, which will be the dock that goes behind the Corpus Christi Yacht Club, is 60% complete at the factory in Florida. Once that's complete and the dredging's done, then they'll be loading that up on approximately 18 trucks to ship this way. The goal is to have that dock into place by the end of May or June. Then they'll be finishing up other parts of that project as they go and then moving across to the other docks. We've got the New People's Boardwalk, so I'll continue to talk about these through additional slides. New haul-out facility, marina office, new Cooper's L-head boater facility, and then we've also combined parking lot resurfacing of the entire L-head in with that project. And then the marina master plan, which I just received the final concept last week. So total for the marina, we have $46 million in improvements, much needed improvements to the marina. Marina's been here since 1940. Starting with the Cooper's L-head boater facility and parking lot resurface, we started that design in December 2023. Estimated completion would be the end of spring 2024. It may extend slightly into summertime as we're working on both this project and the haul-out facility and the parking lot resurfacing, and working on phasing of all these projects together, as well as I'm working with Corpus Christi Water to look at the force sewage main and the main water line on Cooper's L-head, because we do not want to put these new facilities in and then start having issues with those. So some of the phasing is what we're working out. So we're currently about 80% complete, and some of the amenities will be public restrooms, men's and women's, tenant restrooms with showers, similar to what our other facilities currently have. Large meeting room, which allows the tenants to be able to come in, get out of the weather, allows us to hold different meetings, whether that's for the boaters there or, if anybody else is interested in holding a meeting down there in the marina. Laundry room for liveaboard tenants. We're also going to have a small work room for people to work on things for the vessel, try to keep the area a little bit clean rather than having work done in the parking lots, and a small storage space that we can utilize for the marina. Here are some concept renderings that were done by Richter Architects. So this will sit right behind James Bates stand down there, in the same location as the current boater facility, a little bit different positioning. We're going to work on adding some greenery down there, which is something that is missing on the L-head, and really clean up that corner. So moving on, we've got the haul-out facility, which is located on Cooper's L-head as well, directly across from the Corpus Christi Yacht Club. This design was also started in summer of 2023. Estimated completion is going to be the spring of 2024, pending some of the phasing. That is a big project. It's a big facility, and we're currently closing in on 80% completion. The 90% is expected mid-April, and to my knowledge, everything is going to schedule. Some of the amenities in that facility would be our new marina office. We are currently in the boater facility on Lawrence T. Head, and so we'd like to give that back to the boaters and have our own space. A retail marine vendor space, so there will be two smaller rooms, smaller spaces up in that facility as well that can be utilized for retail, right there up on the seawall, which would be a very unique location directly across from the park there. Staff break room, a conference room, which we do not have, so many times when I hold meetings or have to have time with tenants, I'm utilizing boater facility or trying to find some place to sit down and have those conferences. Storage for the travel lift, which is a large gantry, movable gantry crane that we use to lift boats out of the water. That is almost $400,000 piece of equipment that we try to, keep maintained and keep inside as much as we can. Workspace, which is where our staff does all the maintenance for the docks and anything else that we need throughout the marina, and then equipment storage. Here are some concept renderings from Turner Ramirez. So this will sit right on the corner, two-story. Both of these facilities, I'll have to mention, have to get above the base floodplain. So it'll be just under 15 feet in the air. That's basically the height of the seawall. This provided a unique opportunity to go ahead and place what we call livable space, or the working space of this facility, right on the seawall. So we'll exit right up onto the seawall, versus right now everything is down low behind the seawall. This will be a very unique facility, and I think a real center point for that space, that part of the marina, on that corner as you're driving down onto the L-head. And we have the People's Boardwalk.
One question there. Parking is kind of at a premium on the L-head. How are y'all planning to accommodate? Do you think by cleaning up some of the existing uses and realigning the parking, you can get as many spaces? Because it's kind of not very organized right now.
It is. It's difficult. So with the Cooper's Boater Facility project, as we're looking at redoing the surface on the L-head, we're also looking at the spacing in the parking lot and how that facility is going to change that as well. One of my favorite things about this facility is if you look at the diagonal parking up there by the park, we will now be utilizing most of those parking spaces, which sit empty during the week most of the time, for our office staff and visitors to this facility. So in many ways, we're going to relieve parking in other places. We're going to shift parking up there on top of the seawall.
But you have done like a traffic parking count slot. I'm sure you have. I just wanted to bring that up because people are going to say, well, I can't even find a parking space now. What's going to happen when I put more
For sure.
mass down there?
And I think that's always going to be an area of concern for the marina. It's something we looked at throughout the master plan. And we're trying to utilize every square inch to the best that we can, to the best of our abilities. You know, we have over 500 slips in the marina. And so, you know, I've never seen everybody there at one time.
Right.
But theoretically, we have to be able to maintain parking spaces for the tenants as well as these other businesses down here, so.
And that lift that you're talking about is used not just for the maintenance of boats, but it's also used like in hurricanes when we do a large lift still. And
Yeah, so back in the day, they used to lift boats and take them up and put them on top of the seawall and shoreline.
Right.
That has not been done in a number of years. We do use it if there's a storm coming within, you know, more than 5 days in advance. If people do feel like they need to remove their boats from the marina, we also pick the marina boat up and leave it in those slings during the storm so that afterwards there's the ability to put it back in the water and get back to work as quick as possible, as well as protecting our vessel.
so you're going to go on, I'm sure, and talk about some of the docks, but the new dock designs allow more float, if you will. Is that part of not needing to remove boats as much?
Through technology with the dock systems, as well as use of space along Shoreline Drive, things have changed substantially, you know, from previous years. So, yes, the new floating docks will help. They are stronger than the old wooden fixed docks.
Right.
So it allows boats to stay in water and rise with the tide. Mother Nature, if a storm's gonna come through, I can't guarantee anything.
I know, yeah.
But we're definitely
I
building the
know
best we
people
can.
will ask, are we still going to be able to lift our boats and where are we going to put them? Because that's,
Yeah, we'll still have the workyard, still be able to lift boats if people want to remove their boats for a storm or, you know,
Right.
take them somewhere else. We've had boats shipped in from elsewhere. We've had boats come in from California, West Coast, East Coast, people moving to this area that bring their boats, we launch them, and then same. Sometimes we pull them out and they take them elsewhere.
Mr. Wilson.
Is it true a rising tide lifts all boats?
But, yes.
I'm going to say that you don't need to answer that question.
All right. People's Boardwalk. This project will replace the wood structure boardwalk with a concrete structure. This is along the People's Causeway. It comes off the seawall down to the T-head. Design of the new boardwalk is at 100%, and we're currently finalizing those bid documents, project phasing. It should go out to bid any day. I was just speaking with the engineers just last week. And in that process, we're also waiting on the Army Corps of Engineers permit. And that information was sent out last summer. The last update I got is we could have it as early as this summer, which would allow us to move forward with this construction of this project, hopefully at the end of this year. I am working with Harrison's Landing, which is a restaurant on the boardwalk, as well as tenants and landries down there, because this project will impact the entire T-head for sure. But it will be a very neat project. In fact, here are some renderings that were done by Jacobs Engineering. And it's going to be a concrete structure with a composite decking, so this will be similar to the Cole Park Pier. We're trying to keep that boardwalk feel, but have materials that will last a long time and handle this saltier environment very well. So we are going to try to keep this more of a commercial use space for tour boats, visiting vessels, things like that. And I've had a lot of interest from different people, different businesses, to utilize this space once this project is complete. And here's a timeline of the dock ABC DNL replacement. And so this is replacing those wood floating docks that were put in 1994 with a concrete floating dock. This is about as good as you can get in terms of a floating dock for marine structures. And so we're very excited about that. They're estimated to last about 50 years, where the previous docks were estimated to last about 25. And they're definitely showing the wear and tear from those 25 years. So design was started in spring 2021. It's been a long time coming with the permitting process that started in 2022, and we received this last spring, and then we moved forward with bidding. And we actually issued notice to proceed in August of 2023, and they've worked through the process of all the construction documents, getting everything in, placing the orders, working with Bellingham Marine, that's going to be the dock supplier, and then y'all will really start to see things move forward here, I think, in the next couple of months. Cooper's Elhead Boater Facility started design, or the RFP was released in spring 2023. Design contract was approved summer 2023, and we're expecting to have that design complete late spring 2024. Like I said, pending some of the phasing and some of the other things we have moving with with Corpus Christi Water and replacement of those 2 main lines. Same thing with the haul out facility. It's running a parallel line. It is a little bit bigger facility, so maybe a few things we have to adjust towards the end of that design phase. And then the Marina Master Plan. Like I stated before, we just received the final concepts and plan last week. I'm currently reviewing that and working with that design firm on any touch-ups, and then I'm sure we'll start to see that. I'll pass that around here shortly. And then the People's Boardwalk. And that design RFP was released in 2022. Contract was approved summer 2022. We've gone through the entire design and started the permitting process summer 2023. And so we're coming to the end of that. As y'all know, with anything, or as we have learned with anything in the water, the permitting takes longer than we expect. And that's really what has dragged this project out a little bit longer, but we're coming to the end of that, and I think we have everything in line, ready to start construction, hopefully at the end of this year. And that concludes my presentation on those projects. Can I answer any questions?
Any questions? Thank you. Sounds like you got a lot of exciting projects coming.
You turn your mic on, Leah.
Yeah, sounds like you'll have a number of projects coming to fruition this year, so that's great.
I'm excited about that. So.
Yeah, and by the way, congratulations, city staff, manager, on the improvements being completed at the Salina. Yeah, that was a.
Yeah, that lighting is tremendous. Selena and the 8 other Miradors have LED lighting.
Right.
Yeah.
That's going to be a big it already is a big attraction, so.
It really highlights.
Feeds right into your boardwalk.
Right into the boardwalk. Really tie everything together here soon, so.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all very much.
Got one question.
Oh, yes.
Anything on the service station for gasoline
For fuel, so we did put out an RFP the end of last year into this year. We put it out for 40 days and we did not receive any responses. I had 2 companies contact me after the fact with some interest, but not really what we were looking for. I may post that RFP again here in the next month or so. I'm trying to drum up some more interest, try to have some one-on-one conversations with people. The difficult thing is that fuel cannot sustain itself by itself. You need to pair it with some other kind of business. And so we're looking into a couple of different options there. We do still have fuel trucks coming in every other weekend during the winter, and then during the summer I'll probably move that to every weekend. So we do have fuel on site for tenants on the weekends. And it is something I stay up at night thinking about sometimes, so I am working towards that.
Any other comments? But there is fuel. I wanted to bring that out. And also, I think, the permitting on a facility like that is not simple.
Correct.
There's a lot of liability associated with it.
And that's some of the concern with some of the companies I've talked to is, one, the location down there, proximity to the water, what business they could pair it with that they feel they can make their money back, as well as finding a way to secure their facility, the fuel business during a storm. There's a lot that goes into it.
Also, I'm concerned about the safety.
Correct.
That's my concern. Because if you're driving those trucks up and down with fuel, something might happen. So.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you. All righty.
Questions or comments? Thank you very much. Appreciate it. We have one last item on the agenda. It's a Type A sales tax reauthorization update and discussion. I think you just got handed out. I had not seen this before.
So
Some
actually,
slides.
before we take that item up, we do have the update from the American Make Center too. It got skipped over as number 4,
Oh,
I
I'm sorry.
believe.
Okay. My apologies, who's doing that update? Here he is.
Good afternoon, everybody. Danny Melise, General Manager of American Bank Center. I work with Oakview Group, OVG 360, which is the company that runs the management of the day-to-day operations of the arena. And we work with OVG Hospitality, which is the food and beverage, exclusive food and beverage provider for the facility. This is just some of the new staff members that you may see around the building. Added a couple of new faces to the food and beverage side as well as the event side with some staff that were leaving. So the recent capital projects that we've done for the facility, we bought a brand new second Zamboni. We've had the first Zamboni is quite old, and we've had many issues trying to keep it maintained over the last 2 years. But the purchase of the second one is really best practices for facilities that do ice as much as we do. So it's good. We kept the original Zamboni that we have as a backup, but we have the ability to use the new one now, and it's been working great with us so far. We ordered new hockey glass. If you've been into the building, we've added new rolling gates to the parking lots, the flat lots. Those were all chained before. Obviously, some people at night, they weren't very well seen, so there's a lot of times at the end of the nights, people will drive through them. So we put some rolling gates in with reflective tape, so it's a little bit safer for drivers as they're leaving the arena at night. We did buy two new golf carts that we use, one for parking and one we used a lot during Buck Days this year to kind of get people back and forth from some of the satellite lots that we have. We did order all new trash cans. We ordered gray ones for the convention center side and black ones for the arena. Also work with our trash provider for recycling, and so we can start recycling a little bit more efficiently in the building. We did get some new AV equipment on the arena side, some new microphones for some of the broadcasts that we do for Ice Rays, Islanders, things like that, and new cameras. We did get 4 brand new spotlights to replace the 4 spotlights that we currently have. They are all 4K spotlights, which is the brightness of the lamps, which is what the industry standard is going to be going forward. So we purchased those to make sure that we were a couple of years ahead versus a couple of years behind when it came to technology that we have for that. And we did buy new ADA ramps for our staging, the 4-foot staging that we use. Mostly that would be used during the commencement ceremonies that we hold in the facility. A couple of the projects that we wanted to point out that we used outside of this, that were used for the convention center, were the marketplace build-outs, the AV equipment, and the smallwares. The reason we want to point those out is because we strategically did our AV purchase for the arena, as well as our marketplace purchase for the arena with these projects. So that way, while they were still funded from different areas, we were able to see a cost savings on both sides, so that we saved, for the marketplace alone, we saved probably about $100,000 on equipment costs and electrical work that we would have had to use, we would have had to spend had we not done those projects and at the same time. Some of the bigger projects that are run through city engineering, obviously the biggest one is the Sweet Terrace. It's been a long time coming. You can see some of the renderings that we have in there. If anybody would like to, they're making some great progress, and we're looking to be open for the space to be in use for May of this year. We will not have all of the furniture, as we're still working through the procurement of that equipment, but we will be able to utilize it with some of our current tables and chairs that we have on the in our equipment inventory. We just bought 3,000 brand new arena chairs. If you remember, the older chairs were a little bit thinner. Obviously, a lot of them had been there for a while. The ones we have are now have, I believe, 2-inch pads on the seating area, so a little bit more comfortable. They lock together, so that way we don't have to try to zip tie all the chairs as we did previously. So it saves us a lot of time on floor setups for some of the concerts that we have. We ordered and are waiting for delivery on new portable metal detectors. They are quicker than the walk-through metal detectors that we currently have. We should be able to get about 3 times more people through those metal detectors moving forward because of technology. It's a little bit more broad in the way that it reads, and it could read more people coming through as opposed to one at a time through each detector. We purchased a brand new ice floor cover. It's black, and if you remember the old ice floor cover, you used to get a lot of condensation that would build up, so we were constantly mopping those things for commencement in basketball. The new ice floor has a technology that will keep that condensation underneath that, so that way we do not have to have those wet spots that we've had previously. As I mentioned, the arena marketplace, we've got that built in under the escalators at the arena. New coolers, new countertops. We've been getting about, for the concerts that we've been doing, that market build out has been doing about 25,000 in sales per event that we've put it out for. So it's doing exactly what we thought it was going to do, and hoping it'll do a little bit more going forward. And the arena HVAC project that we touched on a little bit earlier, I believe that includes 2 chillers, 2 dehumidifier units that are all going to get replaced, as well as all new piping for it, and some walls that are going to have to get pulled out. That project probably won't be done construction-wise until middle of next year. Just from a timing perspective in the equipment, it doesn't look like we'll get all of that finished before then. This is a list of the capital projects that we had approved in 2023. As you can see, other than the LED lighting project, which because of the electrical and data work that needs to go through that was moved into a city project, as opposed to it being handled directly through us last year. The arena marketplace did get pushed, but again, we did get that installed at the beginning of January, so we had that in use. All the other projects, as you can see, came in pretty close to budget. I think we're really close when it comes to where we thought we were going to end up from a dollars spent perspective. This is the current year's capital projects. As some of the ones that we've already accomplished, as I said, was the arena chairs, the metal detectors. We just put a request for quotes for the meeting tables. We're working with Texas A&M, Corpus Christi on the basketball hoops, making sure that we've got them to specs that they're going to need. We did get the floor cover. So a lot of the stuff that we have is still in process. Half of our funding that was approved has already been requested and spent through some of the bigger projects. So it's a lot of the smaller purchases that we will look at going forward.
Can you go back one slide?
Probably not. God. This one?
Yeah, so
Okay.
there was a couple line items on here that were a little more. So when that happens, I mean, are there other things that get cut from being done, or how are those differences
So
addressed?
we balanced them out to where, as you can see, like the second Zamboni came in very high. We moved the marketplace and we saved, like I said, about $100,000 on that. So we balanced it out to where there was no need for like additional fundings to be requested, because some of the projects came in lower than we thought. So some came in higher, so they kind of balanced themselves out a little bit.
Perfect, thank you.
Major capital projects that are in use or in process. The exterior, that's the landscaping. The bids just came back in on that, I believe a few weeks ago, so we should be moving forward on that shortly. We are looking to add a spotlight platform, which is on the arena side. It's over what is our AV booth. We're building that to put the spotlights up a little bit higher. Previous management had put a staging unit there, which blocks off the ADA ramp that goes up to the AV booth, which tends to be a problem. So while we're in the process of getting that built out and putting the specs together for it, we're working on a lot of the life safety improvements. A lot of that has to do with HVAC and lighting and some of the emergency issues, and of course the suite terrace that we did touch on. The Type A Co-Pro and Marketing Fund, we're happy to say that we spent the last year's funding, all of it, and we're trending to be spending all of it again this year, which is a good thing to have. I always tell our counterparts at other facilities that we're one of the lucky facilities that has something like this that we can tap into to kind of help us bring this. This is not something that I've seen anywhere else in the country, so I hope everybody kind of can appreciate how lucky we are to be able to have that. Obviously, our three tenants, Buck Days, Ice Rays, and Islanders got their funding this year. We did utilize Type A to get the Austin Spurs game that we had just a couple weeks ago. We used it for our top ranked boxing last September, and we're also using it again this April for their event on April 13th. We hosted a fam tour in conjunction with Visit Corpus Christi at the Parker McCollum concert in August, where we invited, I believe it was 40 event planners from outside from all over the country that would bring some of their events to our convention center side. We brought them in and kind of wined and dined them a little bit on the arena side with some of with that show in conjunction with the first Parker McCollum show. Texas Skills Competition. They needed to expand the event that they have in the convention center. So we happen to have the arena open for them. So we utilized to kind of cut their costs a little bit so that way they didn't have to pay up front all of those costs. We utilized that for them to expand in the arena, and now they're utilizing that space for 3 events, 3 days out of their week that they're in the building. WWE, we worked with them to use the Type A funding for a rental rebate for them when they brought SmackDown through last year, which was the nationally televised event. That went so well that they were willing to come back again and do a Monday Night Raw, which will be another nationally televised event, which we're really happy about. We used the marketing funds for Leonard Skinner's ZZ Top to incentivize Live Nation to bring that show. We utilized it for Lil Wayne, the show that we had where we were directly bought that show with a co-promoter, and that show did about 6,800 sold. So it was a really good turnout for us. I believe with what we spent for it, the return on that was probably about $8 or $9 per each dollar that we spent. We're also utilizing it for some marketing for Barry Manilow that we're working on with Outback Presents to kind of offset some of their marketing costs, as well as Parker McCollum with Live Nation. We did use it to sponsor the Junior Olympics boxing tournament that we had last year, as well as our annual Coastal Christmas event, which we do that every year in the arena. And just some of our upcoming events that we have in the arena through the rest of the year.
So is Parking McCollum the discount version of Parker?
No, Parker McCollum. It's Parker McCollum. That's the artist, the country artist that'll be here in August. Yeah. No.
So I'm basing this on an experience at the rodeo last year, which I was pleased to go to. I think the wayfinding is terrible. I mean, you don't have any idea how to go from where you are to where you need to be. So I hope you're working on better signage and wayfinding, because I found it most disconcerting.
Yes, we have. That's actually in process right now. Our director of marketing, and it's in our capital plan for this year. Our director of marketing is working with her partners on the signage right now.
And that's not a criticism. I'm just
No,
saying.
100%, yeah.
It's like, where do I go? Yeah.
No, we recognize that there's a lot of signage that we manually put out now that we have set up for like ADA accessibility for arena events and things like
Right.
that isn't out there. Like it's there, but if you don't know it's there, you don't see it. So we have our director of marketing is working with her vendors on getting all that put together.
And even where to go in if you want to go to an event. It's outside too.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's outside as well as inside. Yes. And in the parking garage and parking lots as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank
That is
you.
part of the plan. Yes.
Good. Anybody else?
Dan, were you able to complete all the remodeling on the dressing rooms?
The Selena dressing rooms did not get redone yet. We had our first walk. That is another project that we're working with city engineering to try to get that walkthrough. They just did a walkthrough with some of the contractors 3 weeks ago, I believe. So we're in the design phases for that for the auditorium side. From the arena side, that had just been done a couple of years before I had gotten here, so that had been finished. Those dressing rooms had been updated. Probably something that we will look at over the next year or so to see if that needs to be redone again, just because we know that obviously when you have college athletes and some of those guys that go in there, they probably needs to be refreshed a little bit over the next couple of years.
Mr. Lord?
I just know recently there were some issues with the elevators. Is that a larger issue, or were there just some, I know some people got stuck at one of the basketball games?
So the elevators have been, we just signed, when we first got here, we signed the service agreements with the elevator companies. They had not been maintained. I'm not gonna put a time frame on it, but from the general repairs and maintenance hadn't been done on it as it should. Without going, like, so we've got a new vendor that we've got a service agreement with. They're slowly going through, they're breaking down, they broke down all the escalators, they're doing a cleaning of all those systems, because that hadn't been done in 5 or 6 years that we know of. Those are honestly general maintenance things usually, not anything that we've been told by our vendor that we should look to push that up. It is in the capital plan to get those replaced over the next few years, but it wasn't something, that situation wasn't something that was a bigger problem. It was more just a general maintenance thing.
I just have a comment. So as a business who has a suite, we've seen a definite difference in the food and in the maintenance of the facility and then in the events. And so very, very pleased with that. Looking forward to the new suite floor or whatever that's going to be. But I think that as we always talk about quality of life in Corpus Christi and trying to recruit and get people to the city, these events are noticeably better. I did not make it to the Tritons game, but I heard it was a success. So just appreciate all the efforts that are put in and more continued success.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, Tritons, I believe we ended up with about 1,600 people in the facility for it. It was a really good turnout for them. They were very happy.
If there are no other questions, thank you very much for the update. It's appreciated.
Thank you.
And the last item now on our agenda is a quick presentation. This is just a discussion item. And I'll warn you before we start this, I do need to leave at about 3:25 to take another call. So I've asked Mr. Wilson if I'm not here to finish off the meeting. I will say, based on this, I have some comments. I'd like to have had more time to maybe take a look at it. And so I'm hoping that we can put it back on the agenda for some further discussions at the next meeting, if that's okay with you.
Yes, no, that is great. This is just a jumping off point. This
Just
is
springing it on us.
Yeah, no, this is more of to begin the discussion. This is not the end of the discussion.
Okay,
This is an
great.
introduction to the discussion. So currently, as you are aware of, we have the 4A sales tax. And so right now we have 1/8 cent that is currently authorized for the arena. Originally, it was authorized for the debt service, and then as that revenue grew, we included it was also authorized for capital projects and then operational needs. So some of the things that Danny was just talking about was using this revenue that is created through this 1/8 cent for the arena. That authorization does expire September 2025. And that 1/8 cent produces about $8 million a year, and that's continuing to grow as our sales tax grows. And then the one other 1/8 cent is for the seawall, which we also talked about some seawall things today. So it was authorized for the seawall debt. And then as that revenue grows, we've used it for capital projects and operational needs along the seawall. That authorization does expire on March 2026. And again, that produces about $8 million a year. So just to kind of revisit, so the authorization for the 4A is through the Development Corporation Act of 1978, and it allows cities to create the Economic Development Corporation, which is what this is, and to encourage new growth in the local economy. And so the type of things that are eligible under this is for convention, tourism, entertainment facilities, professional amateur sports and athletic facilities, affordable housing projects, water and sewage facilities, and parking and transportation facilities. And what the intent behind this is that these projects help develop and expand business enterprises or retain jobs. So, a reminder on the 4A and 4B, both of those are supposed to be economic generators for economic development. One thing that they cannot be used for is for residential streets, residential areas, or general city services. Because residential streets, while our residences do spend money within the city, it is not considered part of economic development. It is primarily focused on commercial and business type growth.
So right there, I want to stop because the seawall was done.
Yes.
And y'all may tell me about the history because it was certainly done quite a while back. But there is no specific tie in the seawall funds to new or expanded businesses.
So the idea, the way that it was presented for the seawall is that the seawall is a protective
Device for
Device.
even existing businesses.
For exactly,
And
and-
that's what I'm going for. It
Yeah.
can be not just for new or expanded, it can be to protect.
in support of or to encourage,
existing- yes,
exactly.
okay.
And so kind of
So
the
in
line.
your wording in here, I would encourage you to
Yeah.
think about that.
Sure. And so, basically, yes, the parallel was drawn and the legal opinion was given that the seawall as a flood control structure, which does fall under kind of the water and sewer facilities, you can use it for stormwater, does help protect the downtown area, which then does encourage new and expanded business enterprises.
Or protect existing.
Yes. So, after the election in November, the city manager met individually with all city council members to get their feelings and thoughts on the 4A reauthorization. And then since then, the city manager has continued meeting with several stakeholders and we will continue moving forward with that. So on February 27th, the city council meeting, we did discuss the type A reauthorization and really look to council for some baseline suggestions to build this off of. And we'll talk a little bit more about the process, but this is not just this. We'll continue moving forward with that. So out of the conversation with some of the beginning stakeholders along with the city council, some of the proposed uses for the 1/8 cents for the arena is to expand that use for not only just the arena, but also to the whole American and Bank Center complex, along with certain city-owned business buildings and assets within the C district, which could include the Museum of Science and History, the Art Museum, the Texas Museum of Asian Cultures and Education Center, the Harbor Playhouse, and the Water Garden. And so, like I said, this is just building a beginning baseline, and we'll continue working through with stakeholders, with city council, and the citizens to define, to narrow this or expand this as we go along.
Can I just add to that, so this, based on that council meeting that we had, this is the consensus of the council, that this was their, their statements of what it could be used for, but it is in total. It's not that they said, well, maybe do the arena or maybe do the playhouse. They said, do all those facilities that are down there in what we know to be the C district, except for the baseball stadium. So the council with consensus said, let's put 1/8 cent to the city-owned facilities, to include the arena, convention center, Selena, and these other buildings, and including the water garden as well, as future large capital maintenance needs.
Did they specifically discuss the marina and the
The
exclusion?
marina's coming up next, yes, they did.
Yeah.
Yeah,
To exclude it?
yeah. Yes, and Heather will cover that next.
Okay.
And so this is just a visual diagram of where those buildings are that we're talking about. So they are primarily within the American Bank Center region and combined there. So then moving into the seawall. So the consensus was to use for the downtown flood wall control structures, including maintenance and repair improvements to the breakwater. And so that is tied to that new or expanded business enterprises. The citywide flood, drainage, stormwater, and coastal resiliency projects that would also support new and expanded business enterprises. So this would not be something within residential neighborhoods, but in those areas, say, North Beach, extended along the downtown and other areas across the city, that there could be flooding that would hinder those new or expanded businesses. This would not include the marina, as in the docks and things like that, the art museum, the art center, or other public facilities along the seawall. So we have taken the art museum and included it under the 1/8 cents that's currently being used for the arena, and pulled it out of the 1/8 cent that is currently being used for the seawall.
So when you say citywide flood drainage, stormwater, and coastal resiliency projects, it doesn't have to be attached to the seawall.
No, because we would not, so when it's reauthorized, it wouldn't be called the seawall fund. It would be called possibly, if this is what the consensus is would be maybe a coastal resiliency or it would be called something else other than seawall. But the seawall would be included within this.
So maybe it's a problem with the exhibits, but, the seawall structure actually goes back around. Is that the whole extent of that back to the,
Yes, that would include it.
okay,
There's a
because it's
picture
not
co-
shown here, and I
It
think
is,
you,
it's on the next page.
well, it goes all the way back around,
You're saying like back over to the port area, back
well,
up, or
back to essentially that low water, I mean, that
salt flat levees?
salt flat levees. So I don't see the salt flat levees. And I'll just also note one other thing before I leave. The pump stations,
Yes.
I assume those are, that maybe they even need to be called out. 'cause
And
that's
that is something I think that when we call out the flood control structures, the pumps would be included in
Yes,
that. Anything.
but that saltwater levee system is going perhaps in the future to be an item. I mean, it could be covered under your second bullet, but it could be an item that will demand a considerable amount of resources in the future. It's the
Yes.
low point in our system.
Exactly. So, and, these boundaries here, these are just possible seawall boundaries. This is some of the things we discussed during the last process, but this is the starting point, and we still have a ways to go before we get this all finalized, utilizing that input that is given. I'm sorry? Oh. And so the other thing is looking at the term. And so what we would propose as a renewal term would be for 25 years. That would allow for the transition from the current uses to the whatever future uses are being approved, and then allow us, if there is the opportunity, to bond against it, just like we did with the first reauthorization, or the first authorization, is to allow for up to a 20-year bonding if we wanted to do that for some of the improvements at the American Bank Center complex, along with anything within that seawall. If there's larger projects that would require bonding, that would allow us to do that. And so really looking at this comprehensive timeline, as I mentioned, there's already been work done. That work started right after the last election to move forward with looking at getting those inputs and that one-on-one meetings with the city council. Today, we are discussing this with y'all. In March and into April, we'll continue discussions with stakeholders to get those ideas and concepts. During May, we will have community engagement meetings and a community survey. So we're going to partner this with the bond community input so that the public will be able to provide input on the bond projects along with this reauthorization for the 4A sales tax. In June, we'll work through refining that based off of all the input. This is not the only time we'll be briefing the Type A board. We will have this on next month's agenda. Then in July 16th, we're planning to present to the city council the final recommendations. August 18th will be the vote to call the election for the sales tax reauthorization, and then the election will be on November 5th of this year. So that concludes my presentation. I'm available for any questions.
Thank you. When does the bond get paid off?
So that is with the expiration. So the arena bonds are paid off in September of 2025, so that triggers the expiration of these, and then the seawall bonds are paid off in March of 2026.
Anybody have questions for Heather?
I have a quick question. So looking at the key dates and next steps, does this come back to us at any point, or?
Yes, we'll continue to update the
Okay,
type.
we'll update,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, we'll continue to update y'all as we move through all of these processes. We'll continue to keep y'all updated.
Okay, perfect.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess I would second Leah's comment that, I think having some time to digest this and
Yes.
kind of come back with comments. If this is the discussion today, I would have liked to have it prior to today's meeting. On this citywide flood drainage, stormwater, and coastal resiliency projects, I guess you made it very clear under the authorization that it cannot be used for any residential streets, residential areas, or general city services. What will dictate, there are residential areas around business areas.
Yes.
And so if this is going to be used for flood mitigation, stormwater, how, will there have to be a certain percentage of the drainage or structure, whatever it is, to support, like, will we have to have a study that it's gonna show that's gonna support those businesses and not residential development, or is that secondary residential development?
Sure. That is, I mean, that's part of what we'll be working through, is what does that language look like? And what are those qualifiers? We'll be working through that, as we move through this, if that is where the opinion and that's input is going, then we'll be working through with our bond counsel and our legal team to make sure that whatever is come forward on the ballot language and/or that the authorization, that kind of the more detailed wording behind that, that we have that clearly defined. I can't speak to that right now because I'm not really sure exactly what where that happy trigger is, but we'll continue working through that and refining that to make sure that we have a very clear definition of what that needs to look like.
Yeah, it just kind of had some clear definition on
Yeah.
what those services would be.
Yeah, like I said, this is still very, very high level. We just have some general ideas, and so we'll continue refining these as we go along before the election would be called.
Eric?
And maybe in the upcoming is some talking points as to what happens if it doesn't get passed.
Exactly.
And passing a tax is always interesting.
Yeah.
And so, but I'd be interested to hear, I was kind of trying to read through all that this covers, but if it goes away in, say, a year, how are some of the projects like we talked about today going to be covered?
So, I mean, just generally, if the sales tax is not reauthorized, we would have any remaining funding that is still within that fund that has been collected. So, y'all looked at the balances today. We allocated some more money, like out of the seawall fund. And so those balances would remain, they wouldn't go away, but there would not be any additional revenue added to those balances. So once that money is exhausted, then we need to find, either fund it through the general fund or something like that. Have to find alternative funding sources.
Kinda like-
Excuse me, if it fails, yes, thank you. If it fails, there's still one and then two more. There's still one more chance for one of the 1/8 and two more for the other one.
Yeah.
What we don't want is for some other taxing entity to get the sales tax, because they could.
Yeah.
If the city doesn't approve it for use in the city business, the RTA, community college, the county could put something on the ballot, so.
Because it just, kind of the backtrack that, so, there's a certain percentage of the sales tax, so the 8.25% goes to the state, and then a certain percentage, a portion of that is available for those eligible entities on the local level. So currently, funding goes into the general fund, funding goes to the RTA, and then we have the crime control, we have 4A and 4B. So if the 4As are not reauthorized, then it can go, anybody else who is eligible can take it to election. It still would have to go for election, but like the city manager said, we prefer to maintain that within our city operations versus allowing it going to another eligible entity.
Will there be any, I guess some of these projects that have come before us are, pretty big ticket items. And so, are there gonna be any percentages that, the seawall funds, certain percentages have to be allocated to the seawall or to the pumps, or so that we don't end up having no money for those in the future?
Sure. It is something that we can look at. One of the challenges that we have to be cognizant of as we go through this is it is a 25-year commitment. And so while if you assign certain dollar amounts or a certain percentage, that in this day and age may be $100,000, but maybe in 25 years it's $1 million. And so that's where, while that is a great thing to be able to say, okay, a portion goes here, a portion goes there, you have to be cognizant of the fact that that revenue should be growing, and so making sure that you aren't kind of stranding money. Right now in Type B, we're having a challenge with our affordable housing. We have a defined dollar amount that's going to affordable housing, and that has to stay within affordable housing per the voters. And so if we aren't able to apply that to affordable housing project, then that money is somewhat stranded. And so I think it's a very fine balance of making sure that you have allocations to make sure that you have money available, but then on not also stranding money where it can't be used anywhere else.
Right, and I think there, I mean, like a percentage of it could be discretionary within the overall projects, but there are some big ticket items
Exactly.
that have to be addressed.
Exactly.
And so just to make sure that those have the funds.
Yeah, and that's something that we probably, for example, on, in our TERS number 2 Packery channel, we knew we needed to maintain Packery channel. So we came up with an average on an annual basis that needed to be set aside to make sure we had some of those big maintenance items. It's something we could do definitely on the seawall side and say a minimum of X amount of dollars needs to be set aside to make sure that these major milestones or major projects are covered, so.
Eric?
Yeah, just real quick, so if I'm hearing correctly, there'll still be a sales tax, it may just be going somewhere else.
There's the possibility. So while it would still have to be approved by the voters, that's one of the caveats, is it still would have to be approved by the voters for whatever that new purpose is. So just like we're going to the voters, or would like to go to the voters in November to ask them to reauthorize the 218 cents, if the voters don't reauthorize it for city use and say the county goes forward, the voters would still have to approve
But
that.
the sales tax doesn't go down.
If it's not reauthorized, it could, yes.
And then I think that, to follow up on your question, I think the prudency, if it was to go away, I think we'd be a little bit more prudent in the allocation of future projects based on availability of funds. So that would be good to know as well.
Yeah.
Any other comments or questions?
Okay, great.
Having heard none, thank you.
Thank you.
Heather. Next item on the agenda is the executive director comments. Mr. Zanoni, do you have a report?
Nothing to report today, Chairman. Thank you.
So if there is no report, there being no further business, the meeting is adjourned.